War divides nations, but peace can reveal their true humanity. After World War II, Japan and the Philippines were supposed to be enemies. The scars of occupation ran deep, and the memories of suffering were not easily forgotten. But in the years that followed, something remarkable happened. Out of tragedy grew friendship. Out of pain came understanding. And in the most unexpected way, many Japanese people began to fall in love with the very culture they once misunderstood. This is the story of how Japan's soldiers, scholars, and civilians discovered something in the Filipino spirit that would change them forever. When Japan surrendered in 1945, the Philippines was devastated. Cities like Manila lay in ashes. Over 1 million Filipinos had died. The pain of occupation and resistance left emotional wounds that would take generations to heal. Japanese prisoners of war were detained, and many feared harsh retribution. Yet, something unusual began to happen inside those prison camps. Instead of hate, Filipino guards and civilians often showed compassion. They shared food, spoke kindly, and even helped sick or wounded prisoners. This unexpected mercy left a deep impression on many Japanese soldiers. For the first time, they saw not enemies, but people, forgiving, generous, and full of dignity. When the war ended, most Japanese soldiers returned home with heavy guilt. Many had lost everything: family, homes, and hope. But some carried with them memories of Filipino kindness that haunted them, in a good way. In Japan's post-war reconstruction, stories began to circulate about how Filipinos treated Japanese prisoners humanely. This contrasted sharply with other war zones, where revenge had consumed both sides. The Philippines' approach inspired many Japanese veterans to dedicate their later years to reconciliation. They wrote letters to Filipino families, donated to schools, and visited the country to express gratitude. One of the earliest examples was the Philippine-Japan Friendship Society, founded in the 1950s by both Filipino and Japanese volunteers who believed in healing through dialogue and cultural exchange. By the 1960s and 1970s, Japan had transformed from a war-torn nation into an economic powerhouse. Trade between the two countries resumed, and Japanese businessmen, engineers, and aid workers began visiting the Philippines. What they found surprised them. Filipinos were warm, cheerful, and curious about Japan, not bitter or vengeful. The hospitality, humility, and easy laughter of everyday people touched the hearts of many visiting Japanese. They were welcomed into homes, invited to fiestas, and introduced to traditions that valued friendship over formality. Many Japanese visitors would later say that their time in the Philippines changed how they viewed life itself, that they found a sense of community and belonging they had never experienced before. Filipino hospitality, or malasakit, became one of the strongest bridges between the two nations. Japanese travelers and workers in the 1970s often remarked that Filipinos had a way of making strangers feel like family. Whether in small towns or big cities, people would smile, share food, and offer help without expecting anything in return. For Japanese visitors who came from a society known for discipline and restraint, the Philippines felt alive, spontaneous, and human. Some Japanese began learning Tagalog. Others joined in local customs, eating with their hands, singing karaoke, or celebrating fiestas with neighbors. They admired how Filipinos faced hardship with humor and gratitude. In many cases, that admiration turned into love. Stories of love and connection. Many post-war Japanese men who worked in the Philippines fell deeply in love, not only with the country, but with its people. There are, countless stories of Japanese engineers, teachers, and businessmen marrying Filipinas and starting families. These marriages became living symbols of reconciliation between two once hostile nations. One famous example is Koji Igarashi, a Japanese peace volunteer who came to the Philippines in the 1970s. He married a local woman, built a small school in rural Leyte, and dedicated his life to educating Filipino children. He said, "I came to teach, but it was the Filipinos who taught me the meaning of kindness." These stories were repeated across generations. What began as foreign aid or business trips turned into lifelong bonds that blurred the line between two cultures. Cultural curiosity and exchange. The Japanese fascination with Filipino culture deepened as tourism grew. They were drawn to the Philippines' simple but profound way of life. The Bayanihan spirit, neighbors helping each other during hardship, resonated strongly with Japan's values of community and mutual respect. Japanese visitors were fascinated by Filipino music, from heartfelt ballads to joyous street songs. Karaoke, which originated in Japan, found a second home in the Philippines, where it became a tool for friendship. Even the food created cultural bridges. Japanese travelers often remarked how Filipino dishes, though humble, carried warmth and nostalgia. Dishes like adobo, sinigang, and halo became favorites among visiting Japanese. Today, it's not uncommon to find Filipino restaurants in Tokyo or Osaka proudly run by Filipino-Japanese families, blending both cuisines into something new. The Peace Builders. As Japan rebuilt its global image, some of its most heartfelt gestures came through peace missions to the Philippines. Former soldiers returned to help rebuild villages they once occupied. Japanese non-government organizations began funding education and healthcare projects in rural areas. One example is the Philippine-Japan Peace Project, which continues to this day. It supports scholarships, cultural exchange programs, and joint environmental work. Japanese volunteers often describe the experience as transformative, saying that Filipinos showed them what it means to forgive and start anew. In interviews, many said they felt spiritually healed after spending time in the Philippines. Some even requested to have their ashes buried there, believing they had found peace among the people they once fought. Art, film, and shared history. Over time, artists and filmmakers from both nations began collaborating to tell these stories. Japanese documentaries explored the courage of Filipino civilians during the war and the compassion that followed it. Filipino directors produced films showing the complexities of forgiveness and love after conflict. In the 2000s, joint film festivals in Manila and Tokyo highlighted this shared journey from war to friendship. Artists painted murals depicting peace, and school programs invited veterans from both sides to speak about empathy. Through art and storytelling, a once painful history became a bridge for understanding. Japanese retirees in the Philippines today. In recent years, thousands of Japanese retirees have chosen to settle in the Philippines. They come not only for the warm climate, but for the warmth of the people. Cities like Davao, Cebu, and Tagaytay have thriving Japanese communities where locals and foreigners live side by side. These retirees often say the same thing: Filipinos make us feel young again. They love the sense of humor, family values, and easy friendships. In return, they share their knowledge of discipline, gardening, and precision, creating a quiet cultural exchange that enriches both sides. In hospitals and care centers, many Japanese patients are looked after by Filipino nurses, who are known for their gentle approach and cheerful attitude. That experience alone has changed how many Japanese see Filipinos, not just as workers abroad, but as symbols of compassion, the hidden legacy of the war's children. There's another chapter, rarely discussed, but deeply human. After World War II, a small number of children were born to Japanese soldiers and Filipino women. Many of these Filipino-Japanese children grew up facing stigma and uncertainty. But as years passed, they began to reconnect with their heritage. In the 1990s and 2000s, Japan and the Philippines worked together to help these families reunite. Today, many of those children, now adults, travel between both countries, celebrating their dual identity. They are living reminders that even in the darkest times, love can survive and rebuild what war once destroyed. So, what exactly is it about Filipino culture that captured the hearts of so many Japanese people? It's the combination of warmth, resilience, and gratitude, the belief that happiness is not found in wealth, but in connection. For many Japanese visitors, the Philippines feels like a return to something essential, something they lost in the rush of modern life. They admire how Filipinos find joy even in simplicity, how communities take care of one another, and how faith remains strong even in adversity. This emotional depth has inspired Japanese artists, writers, and volunteers for decades. Some describe it as the Filipino light, a quiet strength that shines even in hardship. From enemies to partners. Today, Japan and the Philippines are among the closest allies in Asia. They cooperate on defense, technology, education, and disaster response. Japanese engineers help build Philippine infrastructure, while Filipino caregivers help Japan's aging population. It is a relationship built not on politics but on mutual respect and shared humanity. Whenever Japanese diplomats speak about their bond with the Philippines, they often highlight how it began, not through treaties or trade, but through forgiveness. That forgiveness created trust, and that trust became the foundation of friendship. Lessons for the world. The story of the Japanese who fell in love with Filipino culture is more than history. It is a lesson for the modern world. It shows that peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of understanding. It shows that cultures once divided by violence can become united by empathy, and it reminds us that compassion is stronger than any weapon ever built. The Philippines did not win that war through force, but through the quiet strength of its people. Their ability to forgive, to welcome, and to heal. That is why so many Japanese today look at the Philippines not as a battlefield, but as a second home. A friendship written in the heart. In every handshake between a Japanese volunteer and a Filipino farmer, in every shared meal, and every song sung together, there is a message that even enemies can become family. The story of Japan and the Philippines is proof that kindness can rewrite history. Because in the end, it was not the war that defined their relationship, it was what came after, the courage to love again. And that love continues to grow quietly but powerfully from one generation to the next.